child, one of my favorite things to do was to eat my grandparents' desserts. You see, my grandfather owned a small family bakery in Colombia where everything he sold was made from scratch. From decadent chocolate cakes to warm bread, every single item was homemade and filled with natural, organic ingredients. I remember that he used to handpick the big red strawberries that he used to decorate his cakes, and evidently the coffee that he used for his tiramisu was cultivated by the loving hands of a Colombian farmer. For me, eating what would now be labeled to be organic or all-natural was nothing out of the ordinary. The fruits and vegetables that my family ate every day were sold by the farmers themselves. The milk we drank came from the cows and the pastures near our home. And the bread that I ate every single day was made in my own grandfather's bakery. As a child, I never gave much thought to what I was feeding my body. And I never realized how lucky I was to eat cheap, organic food 3 times a day. When I moved to Canada, I was completely amazed by the items offered at the supermarket. Mint-flavored Oreos, multicolored cereals, ready-to-eat mac and cheese. It was a childhood dream come true. It seemed to me that every single item of a supermarket shelf came in a variety of colors, flavors, and sometimes even shapes for me to choose from. Yet, my enthusiastic attitude towards processed food drastically changed in just one meal. I went out for dinner with my family one night, and I ordered a glass of juice. But what the waitress came back with, let me tell you, it did not look like juice at all. This was colored, sugary water, not juice made from actual fruit. I remember being disgusted, astonished, and asking myself, who in the world would prefer to drink an oddly red-colored liquid instead of thick and flavorful strawberry juice? At that moment, I realized that in spite of the delicious and addictive taste of junk food, I missed the food in Colombia, not for its taste or its quality, but for its meaning. Food, for me, was my link to other people. It brought me childhood memories of my grandfather's bakery, of going to the market with my grandmother, and of having a friendly conversation with a man that sold avocados on the street every weekend. At the same time, food constantly reminded me of my dependency and relationship with Mother Nature. It reminded me of the beauty of growing up in a country where cows are always seen outside grazing, and where the potatoes you buy are always covered in their own healthy soil. Industrialism truly robs us of all that. It has distanced us from each other and from nature. Due to the increasing amount of technologies available, less and less people devote their lives to farming. In fact, according to Statistics Canada, there now are 91% less farmers than there were in 1901, even though we now have nearly 30 million more Canadians to feed. This figure is truly symbolic, as it tells us that our food is no longer cooked in kitchens or cultivated by people. It is now made by machines. We have entrusted our most basic and inherent necessity to laboratories that genetically alter seeds, industries that add chemicals to our everyday snacks, and to factories that slaughter millions of animals each year. Not only does this pose a great threat to our health, but also to the environment. Unlike our ancestors, we no longer follow and respect the cycle of nature by eating what is in season. A study by BBC Good Food magazine showed that 9 out of every 10 adults in Britain do not even know when the most common fruits and vegetables are in season. This lack of knowledge is truly predictable, not only in Europe, but also here in North America, given that now nearly all fruits and vegetables are available at our supermarkets all year round. Yet, when we buy tomatoes during the winter or strawberries in the early spring, we do not take into account the environmental impact our food choices have. In order to have all these items available throughout all seasons, supermarkets must import them from other countries. This poses a great threat to the environment, given the carbon footprint of food transportation. However, it is important to note that what causes greater damage to the environment is not the transportation of food itself, but its method of production. In order to produce higher yields, reduce the damage caused by pests, and ensure that fruits and vegetables do not rot while they're being transported to other countries, many farmers now use synthetic pesticides, fertilizers, and even seeds that have been genetically engineered. In spite of the increasing amount of practices that allow farmers to reduce the damage caused by pests while using little to no chemicals, our use of herbicides and genetically engineered crops has augmented throughout the past years. In fact, according to the United States Department of Agriculture, 92% of the corn and 94% of the soybeans that are grown in the US, and in many cases later used to make the processed foods that we eat every day, have been genetically engineered. Nature has been able to produce delicious fruits and vegetables for thousands of years without the use of these chemicals. However, our increasing desire to have fruits or vegetables that have more nutrients, to have apples that don't turn brown after they've been sliced, or to have potatoes that do not bruise so easily, has led us to disregard the environment's biological processes. Our increasing desire to have higher yields or almost perfect fruits and vegetables has led many farmers to use chemicals that kill 200,000 people per year, alter the natural composition of the soil, and even threaten biodiversity. Not only are we using these chemicals on plants, but we have now moved to using them on animals to obtain delicious meat, eggs, and dairy products. An example that is often used is that of chickens. Thanks to the use of hormones and antibiotics, many companies have been able to reduce the age at which chickens are killed to merely 47 days. And as you can see on this graph, the age at which chickens are slaughtered has substantially decreased throughout the past century, while their weight has constantly augmented, reaching unprecedented levels. In addition to this, in order to maximize profits, many companies no longer allow animals to freely roam the land, but confine them to small and often unsanitary spaces. This is done not only to lessen costs, but ensure that the meat of the animal is soft and tender, and not tough like that of an animal who has had the privilege of moving. We no longer see animals as living creatures that have the right to live a healthy and pleasant life, but as mere objects that must provide us with what we demand. We have now completely alienated ourselves from nature. We now believe that we are superior to the environment, and many of us consider that we have the right to alter its biological processes, in spite of the atrocious consequences that will ensue. Technology has and will continue to allow us to facilitate many agricultural practices. But at the same time, it has altered the basic essence of farming, which is the cooperation between man and the environment. We cannot continue to take from nature without giving it care and respect in return. We cannot continue to use hazardous chemicals on plants or to deprive animals of their most fundamental physical and social necessities. As consumers, you and I have the power to change the system at every snack and every meal. So the next time that you go to a grocery store, think of picking the items of companies that respect our planet. Companies that believe that animals have the right to roam the land, that fruits and vegetables must be grown in an organic and sustainable manner, and that the labor of a farmer will always be far more valuable than that of a machine. It is time for us to return back to our roots, to buy products made at family-owned restaurants and bakeries, and to enjoy cooking from scratch with our loved ones. It is time for us to recognize that food is an intrinsic part of who we are as human beings. And if we do not take care to what we feed to our bodies or how we grow it in the environment, we will damage our connection with each other and with our planet. Thank you.